I don't remember my name anymore. Don't remember where I came from or who I used to be, but I still remember the pill. Small, white, smooth-surfaced, with no markings. It looked completely harmless, and it was the last thing I ever swallowed while I was still myself. The facility I was taken to shouldn't exist, at least not on record. Everything about this place felt wrong. The lights flickered even when there was no electricity, and the windows were boarded up with rotting wood. Yet every time I passed one, I felt eyes watching me from inside. This used to be a state-run psychiatric hospital, officially shut down in 1997 due to severe disrepair and lack of funding. But the rumors said otherwise. People whispered that something dark had happened there, something unexplainable, something survivors could never forget. I was part of a clinical mental rehabilitation program. At least, that's what they told me. Diagnosed with mild anxiety and signs of dissociation. They said I just needed rest and a routine. Then they offered a new kind of treatment, an advanced neuropharmaceutical. Still experimental, but completely safe, they claimed. And I, foolishly, didn't question it. I signed the papers, sat through the short briefing, and swallowed the first pill on day one. At first, nothing happened. Just some dizziness, a dry mouth. I even thought, maybe this means it's working. Maybe, finally I was healing. But on the second day, I woke up and stared at the ceiling for nearly an hour. Not because I was tired, but because I couldn't remember what this room looked like yesterday. I remembered the walls were always painted white, but this time they felt different, as if they were getting closer, as if they were breathing with me. By day 3, I found a crumpled note shoved into my pocket. It read, "Your name is Kyle. Don't forget, room 312. I had no memory of writing it. I took it to a nurse. She looked at me strangely with a flicker of pity. She told me I'd asked that question all morning, but I swear I was asking for the first time, or at least I thought so. The other patients weren't much better. We ate in silence, wandered the identical hallways, but no one really looked at each other, as if we were all slowly forgetting we were human. By the end of the first week, I couldn't recognize my own face in the mirror. The reflection looked like me, sure, but something was off. The eyes blinked wrong. The smile tilted at a strange angle. I stood there for hours, waiting for it to go back to normal. But it never did. On the morning of day 10, I woke up in room 310. I had never been assigned to room 310. But all my things were there, my books, my clothes, the familiar pill bottle on the desk. Except one thing made it hard to breathe. The name on the label had changed. It wasn't Kyle anymore. It was a different name, one I'd never heard before. But somehow, I knew it was mine. I stared at that bottle for almost an hour. That unfamiliar name, I'd never heard anyone call me that. But when I whispered it in my mind, a chill ran down my spine, as if something deep inside me was nodding. Yes, that's you. I didn't tell anyone, not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't sure anyone still cared. Or worse, whether they still saw me as the same person. That day, I walked down the old hallway toward the medical wing. Everything looked the same. White walls, silver-painted steel doors, nameplates peeling with age. But as I turned the third corner, I realized something horrifying. I'd already passed this spot. Not once, but 3 times. The same corner, the same crack in the wall, the same broken wooden chair. I was stuck in a loop. No one else in the facility spoke of it, but I saw it in their eyes. A tall, gaunt man with sunken eyes sat slumped by the window. 3 days in a row, I saw him in the same clothes, same posture, completely still. But on the 4th morning, he was gone. Only the chair remained, gently rocking, as if someone had left it moments earlier. I asked the nurse. She looked at me and asked, "Who?" I pointed to the patient registry. There was no name like his. No file. No record. No empty bed that had been cleaned. That night, I looked in the mirror. The reflection was still me, or at least something that looked like me. But when I raised my right hand, the image raised its right hand too. Not the left, as a reflection should. I tried again. Closed one eye. The image didn't follow. It just stared. I stood there for hours. I don't remember how long I cried, but I remember that when I turned away, I saw the reflection still standing there, watching me. After that day, I started hearing voices. Not loud, not clear, more like muffled whispers mixing with the sound of the air vents. While I laid my head on the pillow, I heard someone counting. 1, 2, 3, then silence. When I opened my eyes, the hallway light flickered, and outside my room, someone was standing, not moving, not speaking, just standing in that blur between light and shadow, as if waiting for me to respond. I ran out. The hallway was empty, but when I turned back, my door, the one I'd left slightly open, was now slammed shut. I began fearing the sound of my own voice. Every morning, I woke up with a different tone, raspier, deeper, or emotionless. Once, I heard myself speak in my sleep, using a language I didn't understand. I whispered in the night, "There's not much time left." But who said that? Was it me? Or whatever was living inside me? Once I kept a journal. I thought if I could write everything down, I could hold on to myself. But when I opened the notebook the next day, the handwriting wasn't mine. The strokes were rigid, jagged, like written by someone who never learned how to write. Page after page, filled with symbols I'd never seen. Faces drawn without eyes, without mouths. Just hollow, dark heads. I tried to tear it apart, but my hands wouldn't obey. They clutched the book tight, as if some part of me wanted to keep it, wanted to read more. By the third week, I stopped taking the pills. I thought maybe if I quit, I'd regain clarity. But the pill never disappeared. Every morning, it was still on the desk, in the same bottle, with that same strange name on the label. I flushed it. I threw it away. But the next day, it was back. I once thought I might be going insane, that this was a side effect. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. I was being replaced. Slowly, quietly, painlessly, just erased, bit by bit. I no longer remember my laugh, the smell of the food I once loved, who dropped me off here, or if anyone ever came to visit. All that remains are fragments of memory and a growing fear, not of death, but of staying alive while no longer being myself. I started feeling watched from inside, not by others, but by a part of my mind I no longer controlled. Sometimes I'd stop mid-sentence because I forgot what I was going to say. Worse, I started saying things I never meant to, sentences like, "We are ready," or "The next dose will complete the process." But I never meant to say those. I never thought them. The voice was mine, but the words were not. I decided I had to know the truth. One night, I snuck out during the nurse's shift change. I knew there was an old administrative office on the 3rd floor, still locked under no usage protocol. But I had seen a janitor leave a spare key in a fuse box. I've been watching all week. I unlocked the door. The stench of mold, old paper, and chemicals hit me like a punch. The room was pitch black, only the hallway light slipping through the crack under the door. Dozens of file boxes, dusty podiums. I tore through everything, searching for a familiar keyword, PX41. Almost an hour later, I found a thick file sealed in water-resistant plastic, marked in red. Confidential, internal use only. Inside was everything. PX41 wasn't an anti-anxiety drug. It was a compound developed as part of a military auxiliary project, aimed at blurring the line between identity and total obedience. Goal: erase individuality to create a blank host, ready for command input. The language was clinical. They didn't refer to patients as people. The notes read, "Test subject 21 shows favorable response. Assimilation rate, 82%. At the bottom of the page, I saw the patient code, 312K. I realized that was my old room. I realized K could stand for Kyle. My chest tightened. My breath caught. Sweat beaded on my forehead. I flipped the page and saw a brain scan. It wasn't a normal brain. Sections were labeled. Emotional response disabled, hippocampal activity reduced, secondary cortex stimulation enhanced. I didn't understand all the terms, but I understood one thing. They were erasing what made us human. I tried to leave the file, but a loose sheet fell from the back. A blurry fax with a final line underlined in red. Some subjects may show high drug resistance. Symptoms include hallucinations, dual voice phenomenon, loss of reality boundaries. Recommend termination if identity layering incomplete after day 21. I looked at the calendar on the office wall. I'd been here exactly 20 days. Clutching the file, heart pounding, I left the office. On my way back, I heard footsteps behind me, light slow, like someone walking barefoot across cold tile. I turned. No one. I walked faster. The overhead lights flickered. A silhouette at the end of the hallway. No face, no eyes, no legs. Just a shape darker than the shadows. I ran back to my room, locked the door, sat on the floor, staring at my hands. They were trembling, fingernails dusty from old paper. But what chilled me was the red ink smear on my arm. I didn't know what it was written with or when it appeared. Next step, no name required. I didn't know who wrote it. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was the other me. I began hearing voices inside my head. Not thoughts, real sounds. Clear, as if someone was right behind me, whispering in a wet, breathless voice. Everything is fine. Don't worry. The process is completing. I screamed, slammed my head into the wall, covered my ears, but the voice remained, calm, unshaken by my cries. I looked into the mirror. One last time. My reflection no longer copied my movements. It just stood there, still, staring, smiling. And in that moment, I understood I was no longer the one at the center of this body. I sat there, in front of the mirror, long after the reflection stopped mimicking me. It stayed still, motionless, but its eyes followed every move I made like I was the one trapped behind the glass. I began to realize what I was looking at wasn't just a reflection. It was another version of me, a being born of repetition, of that pill, of the memory erasure and personality implantation. It was waiting for me to give up, to stop fighting. And I knew I was losing. I don't know exactly when I lost control. Maybe when I forgot my name. Maybe when I read the writing on my arm. Or maybe when I looked into the mirror and didn't feel afraid anymore. I think I got used to it. The next morning, the pill was no longer on the table. The files were gone. The notes with strange writing gone. My room was clean, sterile, like nothing ever happened. But as I stepped into the hallway, I noticed something strange. All the patients were the same clothes. All walked in sync. No voices. No one sitting. No one screaming. No one crying. Everyone was the same. The same eyes. The same empty smile. The same expressionless face, like they'd been programmed. And I was walking among them. I no longer tried to ask questions. I no longer searched for escape. I no longer felt fear. I just walked. Walked like part of the system. Every step matched. Every hallway familiar. Not because I remembered, but because I've been programmed to recognize. That night, I was called into the final evaluation room. A cold concrete cell with a single metal table. On it, a voice recorder and a small syringe. A man in a white coat sat across from me, but I couldn't see his face clearly. The ceiling light flickered. No one spoke for minutes. Then he asked, "Do you remember who you are?" I wanted to say, "I'm Kyle," but my mouth didn't move. Instead, I heard myself say, "I am subject 21, PX 41 complete." Assimilation successful. I didn't know I was going to say that. I didn't mean to, but the words came out, flat, emotionless, like a line of program code. The man nodded, said nothing else, just pressed a button on the recorder. Then he left the room without looking back. I sat there, alone. Then the door behind me opened. No one told me what to do, but I stood, walked inside, as if an invisible command was guiding every step. I entered another room, one padded from floor to ceiling. No windows, no cameras, no lights. In the center, a chair and a camera. On the chair, a single piece of paper. I picked it up. If you're still capable of self-awareness, leave your final message here. Below that, a red button and a voice recorder. I don't know why I could still read, or why I felt I needed to say something. I pressed the button. If anyone finds this record, trust me, it all started with a pill. A tiny pill. It looked harmless, but it didn't just change my emotions. It didn't just affect my memory. It wiped me out. It took away my name, my voice, my memories, and eventually, if you've ever been offered something new, effective, advanced, ask yourself, would you still be yourself afterwards? Because I didn't ask, and I can't go back. I'm not me anymore, but I'm still here,